I'd like to call to order the meeting of the.
I can still think of a need.
Introductions.
Oh,
General Manager report of Umatilla.
Joe Taylor, Baltimore.
John Schaefer, Umatilla County.
This is JD, C2IR.
Jeff Lynn Holtz, Morrow County. Brandon Hughes, TC2R.
Paul Rabb, C2IR.
Bob Long, Port of Umatilla alternate.
I'm Greg Smith, CDA.
Emily Collins, CDA.
Ryan DeGroff, Business Oregon.
Cam Doran, Umatilla County.
Scotty Doyle, Air Fire.
Sue Oliver, Morgan County. Police Middle Click, Portland.
Chris, already, engineer of record of the CDA. Dr. Aaron from the Soil Electric. Bill Peterson, Port of Morrow. Ryan Empey, Western States Carpenter Union. Mike Hughes, Portland Fire.
Eileen Hendricks, Portland. Lisa Pratt, Portland Fire.
And a line.
Aaron, you first.
Aaron Pomko, City of Oregon.
Doug Olson.
Doug Olson, Umatilla County Council.
Barrett Thorson.
Barrett Thorson, East Oregonian.
CC.
Just a member of the public.
Steve Williams.
Steve Williams, Cleaver Farming.
John Murray.
John Murray, Port of Morrow.
Christopher A.
Chris Adlin, Confederated Umatilla Journal.
Griffin Beach. Marty Broadbent.
Marty Broadbent, resident of Boardman.
Nick Cox.
Nick Cott's, Reese Training Center.
Patricia Andreessen. And Timothy. And then I think Kyla just joined us. And that's everybody.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. We now go to the public comment period, and we would like to limit comments of those here or online to 3 minutes, and Emily will be watching the clock on that. So let's do in the room first. Anybody who would like to make a public comment? All right. Sue, go ahead, please. Thank you. And for those who are listening, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Sue Oliver. I live in North Morrow County. Thank you all for being here. And since I was last here, I went and visited the governing bodies of every member of this commission, with the exception of Mr. Tubby, mostly because Mr. Tubby, in my mind, is the one who's trying to do the job that you need to do. So I really have no particular comment. I am really pleased to see some things on the agenda that I've been asking for you to start bringing forward to discussion. And I'm looking forward to seeing some progress today on some of these issues as this board moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Online? I see no hands being raised online, so we will go forward. Commissioner Taylor had some things he'd like to add to the agenda. Joe, you want to say something about that?
Yes, we have our budget committee update on there already, but in our budget committee, we talked about items for public records request. I want to make sure that we're okay to discuss that today, if that's all right with the board. I also just scribbled my notes here. Along with the budget, we talked about some personnel positions, some discussion for that. And then along with that budget would be a member contributions agenda discussion. And then I have one here for property sale. There's discussion, we had discussion of the budget committee of whose property that might be. I don't know if that really falls under budget committee update, but could we add it as an item on there, if that's all right, with the board?
Can you, those 4 items?
Yeah, those 4 items.
We can go over them real quickly again.
Okay, so one was the public records request fees. And I just wrote down CDA board on personnel position.
Yeah.
I think,
Yep.
on that budget there, and then member contributions.
Oh, yeah.
There, and then, the last one would be, we discussed in that meeting. If there was property for sale, whose would that be?
Mhm.
I think we need a little more discussion on that. I think the budget was. If we could have that on our agenda today.
I have those down here. Do you want those on by a motion, Greg? Do you think we should have a motion or just?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to include those 4 items that you just heard delineated.
I will move that we add those 4 items to
All
our
right,
agenda.
thank you. Then move the other 4 items that we just discussed.
What was the third one?
Member contribution. We hear a second.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I'll ask one more time about public comment. All right. On the consent agenda, you have in your packet the March 25, 2025 board meeting minutes, want to separate those all together.
Why don't we do them separate?
Okay. So motion to approve the minutes.
So on that, I had some minor corrections, I've given Emily copies of, and they were on page 4, 15, and 20. And they're basically kind of typos to that extent. If you want, I can elaborate. If not,
Okay, so Emily has that, so the
Yeah.
corrections have been made.
so the one that's more substantive, at least in my mind, is on page 25, item number 6. And it was talking about the UEC grant and stuff, and the minutes reflect, it says motion carries unanimously. Now, the record
Oh, and you-
minutes do show that, I accused myself at the beginning of it, but I want the vote to reflect that I did not partake in the vote.
Awesome, thank you, got that. Anything else, Jeff?
That was it.
Okay. With those corrections, motion to approve the minutes.
I'd make that motion to approve the minutes with the corrections as I noted.
Second.
Moved and seconded, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The March 2025 statements, those are in the packet as well. Any questions or comments before we ask for a motion on those?
I'd move for acceptance of those.
And move to accept the March 2025 statements.
I'll second that.
Seconded, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And QuickBooks for February through March, and that is back in the tabs as well, is it not, Emily?
It's in that way.
All right. Okay.
It's fine. It's
Any questions there?
I would move to approve the CDA QuickBooks for February.
Got a motion,
Second.
second, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Item number 4, informational reports, and I'm going to turn to you, Greg. We've got 4A is a fire service update.
Yes, sir. So, board members, if you'll recall, during our February meeting, there was a conversation surrounding fire services for the CDA, primarily on the Monroe County side of the line. There was a motion made in February to undo the memorandum of understanding between the Columbia Development Authority and the Boardman Rural Fire Department. In March, we had a further conversation in which I brought a letter from legal counsel saying that that the motion that was made by the CDA, made, seconded, and passed by the CDA could result in legal ramifications for the CDA. Since that time, you folks directed me to reach out and meet with the Boardman Rural Fire Department folks and the Oregon Rural Fire Department folks. What we did is we had a meeting between legal counsel for those two entities, along with Elizabeth, Emily, and myself.
Excuse me, did we lose our online audience or is that?
Oh.
Okay, I just saw that screen change, so I want to make sure that they're still there.
Looks like it, hopefully.
I'm still here.
We're still here.
Still here.
Thank
There,
you.
thank you.
So at the end of the day, Elizabeth has shared with me that the motion that was made, seconded and passed in February would most likely bring additional litigation from the Erie Rural Fire Department and the Boardman Rural Fire Department. What Elizabeth is recommending we do is we retract that motion and allow me to go sit down with both those parties to see if there's another resolution that can be reached. I will read the resolution that I've asked her to draft up for us, then Mr. Chair, we can have a conversation.
Is this what you're going to do? Does this have the language of the retraction in it as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So this is essentially going to be the motion that we've been advised by legal counsel to make.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Just
Correct.
wanted clarification.
So it says, whereas in 2023, the Columbia Development Authority entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Erie Rural Fire Protection District and a memorandum of understanding with Boardman Fire Rescue District, in which CDA received services, fire and emergencies, services for fire and emergency service pending annexation into each of these districts. Whereas it was anticipated through the individual MOUs that the Erie Rural Fire Protection District would annex the exclusive farm use parcels in Morrow County, and Boardman Fire Service District would annex the Port Industrial Area in Morrow County into their respective districts. Whereas in its February 2025 meeting, the CDA board voted to rescind the ongoing annexation process before Morrow County related to annexation of the Port Industrial property into the Boardman Fire Rural Department District, excuse me. Be it resolved that the February 2025 motion is rescinded and annexation of the Port Industrial property by Boardman Fire Rescue District should proceed as anticipated in MOU with Boardman Fire Rescue District. Be it further resolved that the exclusive farm use parcels in Morrow County should be annexed as anticipated by the Erie Rural Fire Protection District, and that CDA will convey to the Erie Rural Fire Protection District that it should not annex other lands into the district pursuant to ORS 478.720, which was a statute enacted following execution of the MOUs in 2023. So effectively what Elizabeth has shared with us is that in 2023, we entered into memorandum of understandings. Those the motion that we made in February would have undone these and would result in a breach of agreement with these two partners.
And the EFU is the 640.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So do you have any questions about what Greg just read? And this came from Elizabeth before I asked for a motion. So somebody like to move to that language?
I have a question. I don't know if you want
Yeah,
a
please.
motion on the floor first, but
Go ahead.
so I guess my question is, by doing this, would that open us up to a lawsuit by Erie Fire?
Yeah, potentially.
Say that again.
Either way.
Yeah, okay.
Either way, we're bad.
Question over here, please.
I would like to see the MOU with the Oregon from 2023. I sit on the board and I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
So most of your statement doesn't apply correctly because there is no MOU with Oregon.
I apologize, sir. I'm just bringing this forward from our legal counsel.
Understood. Just telling you, it doesn't exist. So rescinding something that doesn't exist might be proved to be a little difficult.
Lisa, please.
But there was a motion. I mean, the CDA board did approve the 640 acres going into the Oregon Fire.
There was
District.
no communication with Oregon Fire with respect to that.
The Oregon Fire was at the meeting and we approved annexing that into the Oregon Fire District. Am I wrong?
No, I believe
I was on the
that's,
board then.
I was on the board for Oregon Fire and we were not. As far as I know, there was no discussion at our board with respect to that.
Your fire chief came and asked for it and we approved it.
Well, this new 478 is active as of 2024. And is a new law. Mr. Smith voted aye on in Salem, push this through, so.
Thank you. And Greg, you said that subsequent to this motion that was put together by Elizabeth, if we move second and pass this, that there are going to be further conversations with Elizabeth and the legal counsel from each of the two departments that have been described here.
Yes.
Okay.
So the one thing I do want to point out, is, my understanding, if I recollect correctly, is the memorandum of understandings were signed in 2023. Sort of the legislation you're referencing is 2024. These contracts or agreements were already in place.
John, go ahead.
I guess my question is, what's stopping us from the council sitting down with councils from both parties before this motion is made? What advantage does it give us to do that?
Because of the retraction subjects us to litigation. And we did that. So we are now in jeopardy of litigation because of a motion that we made in February. So this is to retract that to avoid that.
Oh, no, I get that. But by doing this motion, when I asked Mr. Smith if that would open us up to litigation from the other side.
Does it open us up? Potentially. Will it occur? That would be dependent upon the Oregon World Fire folks.
So for now, we're in jeopardy of being litigated. The retraction removes that component, but it doesn't mean that we have a clear path forward. That will be dependent upon the conversation that takes place.
So pending litigation on either side, no matter which way we go.
That's correct, but there's greater certainty without the retraction. That is a given unless we do the retraction. And then depending on the mediation or the conversations that take place, however successful that might be, my understanding is that that is a probability as opposed to a certainty. We have a certainty unless we retract. And if we do the retraction, then we have a probability. That's correct. That's my understanding, John. And I'm not a lawyer.
So we have two memorandum of understandings. There's a disagreement, I understand, that were signed in 2023. The action we took in February is a breach of those memorandum of understandings. Elizabeth is directing us to rescind the action that was taken in February, take us back to where we originally were, and then navigate with Oregon and Boardman to see if a resolution can be held.
Other questions?
Each of you in your packet should have a copy of the resolution provided by Elizabeth.
I guess I'm still not seeing why we don't just have the conversation with the two legal counsels now.
Because right now we're in a breach of memorandum of understanding with both Boardman and Oregon.
And our counsel has advised us to move forward in this direction.
so what was the language of the motion in February?
You know what we'll start doing for future meetings? We'll have each month's notebooks here, so that way we can just pull them really quick.
With the horse trailer into the library and just pull it around.
That is correct. That's correct.
I just asked because the whereas kind of refers to what the motion says it does, but it doesn't include the language of the motion. So I didn't.
I just don't want to pull up my email and have it be. The motion was to send the current request to the CDA's executive director in forwarding the question of annexation to Morrow County and put that on hold for now. It's kind of a broad motion, but the background behind it is we had been requested to send a request for our annexation into Boardman County to the county. We sent it off to Justin Nelson, and then this motion requested us to rescind it.
So it was a request of the CDA executives director, right? So was your request?
It was directed.
I
To
think it was
me.
made by Joe.
Yeah.
Joe made the motion. Is there any counsel from Elizabeth that Joe should make the motion then to rescind the previous motion, or is that?
She did not specifically point out an individual, rather just. I asked.
Right. Is it your recommendation that we follow Elizabeth's counsel and go
Yes,
ahead
sir.
with this motion? Okay,
Yes,
I would assume that that was the case. So we have a recommendation to follow through with the motion, the language of which you've heard by our legal counsel. Is there anyone willing to make a motion in that regard?
I do want to share with the board as you proceed forward, though, on the 11th of April, it was the 11th of April, we had a meeting with both partners. And it's my intent to work with them to find a win-win situation to where both sides feels that they can provide adequate
Great,
service.
thank you. Please.
I'm seeing something in the chat and I want to.
Yeah, it's from Kelly Doherty. She says the motion made by Jeff Windholz did not contain annexation. You need to listen to the audio. The minutes are incorrect. The motion from April 2023 did not have any language to annex.
I have listened to I believe I've listened to that entire meeting. No, I apologize, that's not the same, that I've listened to. Okay.
I think we need to hear those minutes before we make any decisions today.
I believe I listened to those and I think there was talk of annexation too.
She's pulling it up right now.
So at the end of
This
the
is
day-
Tim. This is Tim Coleman. I represent Boardman Fire District. Can I speak real quickly?
Yes, please.
I have in front of me the MOU and it says, whereas the CDA Board of Directors approved at its board meeting in April 25th, 2023 to request annexation of CDA's property in Morrow County and so forth. So whatever happened orally, it certainly got recorded that it was approved. in the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
These are the.
John,
I kind of want to hear the audio because
I'm not sure, but these were approved minutes.
If you like, I can read the letter that was provided to me by Elizabeth. Mr. Chair,
please.
it's lengthy.
How many pages?
It is.
Okay. I think we're well advised to listen to the letter.
And it says, Greg, I reviewed CDA's memorandum of understanding with the Boardman Fire Rescue District attached the Oregon Rural Fire Protection District's February 14, 2025 notice. The February 2025 board meeting reporting and relevant Oregon statutes based on the facts presented, CDA's motion to pause efforts to annex its land into the Boardman Fire Rescue District service area at the February 2025 board meeting likely constitutes a breach of its MOU with BFRD and exposes CDA to damage claims. The CDA entered into the MOU with BFRD after passing a motion to have BFRD provide fire and emergency services to the CDA. Under the terms of the MOU, BFRD has been providing free fire protection services to CDA since August 31st, 2023. These free services were offered to provide protection until CDA's annexation into BFRD. BFRD approved annexation shortly after the MOU was entered into, but despite its efforts to complete it, the official annexation has not yet occurred. This delay does not appear to be BFRD's own making. In the interim, CDA continues to receive free emergency and fire services as provided for in the MOU. Meanwhile, IRFPD became interested in providing services to the CDA. Its notice indicates an intent to annex CDA land as a result of its currently unannexed status. ORS 478.402 allows for a 90-day window of time in which landowners can voluntarily agree to IRFPD's annexation, else be subject to IRFPD's decision to not provide services or provide services at 3 times the normal cost. The 90-day window is currently ticking, and we understand IRFPD now intends to annex the same property that BFRD has been seeking to have annexed pursuant to the MOU with CDA. The MOU evidences a mutual goal of BFRD annexing CDA land. BFRD's free services include fire marshal duties, responding to fires, rescues, and hazardous materials incidents, and providing fire prevention services and paramedic ambulance services. This is not altruism under the MOU. After annexation, BFRD would receive compensation in the form of assessments based on tax valuations from the land it annexes. Thus, BFRD has a clear, calculable expectation of future tax collections. BFRD has performed its obligations, and without annexation, CDA will be unjustly enriched by receiving the benefit of free services without performing its side of the bargain. That is, by allowing BFRD to complete the annexation process initiated and required of BFRD and CDA in the MOU. There are 2 theories of contract recovery that BFRD could use to sue CDA and win monetary damages. By the way, this is not should be an executive session, bro. Just continue to read. First, it's expectation damages that put a parity in the position it would have been in had the breach not occurred. For BFRD, that could be the true value of tax dollars it would have received as a result of annexing portions of CDA's land. The second theory is reliance damages that put a party in the same position it would have been in had the contract not been entered into. For BFRD, this could allow for recovery of the true cost of all services rendered to CDA households and lands over the last 18 plus months. CDA may be unaware of the position that it's put itself into. At its February 2025 board meeting, a motion was passed to affirmatively pause receiving Morrow County's approval on the BFRD annexation. Unfortunately, this motion would likely be seen as an affirmative breach of the MOU. In essence, the motion acts as an implicit approval of IRFPD's annexation efforts, as IRFPD's notice only grants a 90-day window for landowners to consent to annexation before threat of losing service. Once our IRFPD's annexes the lands, it will not be possible for CDA to comply with the terms of its MOU with Boardman, opening CDA to lawsuit and damages discussed above. Rather than pushing forward and honoring the MOU, this motion puts CDA in the position of stalling BFRD's annexation. Based on testimony from the February 2025 board meeting, Boardman may be willing to split annexation of CDA land with our IRFPD. I would encourage CDA to consider working cooperatively with IRFPD and BFRD to this end. I further recommend that CDA expeditiously rescind the motion passed at the last board meeting and request Morrow County's expedited review of the petition for annexation into BFRD. Further, CDA should notify IRFPD that it does not wish to have its property annexed into its district. Though please track this deadline carefully, as they might push ahead and annex this now regardless and then charge CDA 3 times the cost. Rather, CDA should request that IRFPD hold off on any annexation or limit its annexation to agreed upon areas. These steps are necessary to defend against a breach of contract claim that BFRD might otherwise make.
Thank you. So that's what our legal counsel has advised, Brad. And you have the motion, as you understand it. Greg read that. And so I'm going to call for a motion to, is it retract or rescind? I think it's retract. Is that
A resolution to proceed with fire district annexation.
okay? Anybody willing to make the motion? Based on what we've received from legal counsel.
Well, based on the advice of legal counsel, I will make the motion to approve resolution to proceed with the fire district annexation. The one change that I think we should make in there is, again, it's just a small typo, but the second whereas in the Boardman BFSD, it should probably be BFRD. Right.
Okay, thank you. Been moved. Here a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Been moved and seconded, and like for discussion, you want more discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded for discussion.
Just didn't know if there was any more. If there were any members wanted any more discussion time.
I just want to hear the original recording.
Yeah.
Just as a point of order, is it approved written minutes, which takes precedence, the audio or approved written minutes?
I would think that the written minutes were.
I think the minutes would suffice as well. But you certainly could abstain or oppose, you know, if the motion goes forward. So, it's been moved and seconded.
So gentlemen, and board members, I would just caution you. Our legal counsel's given us advice.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
correct. And just, Mr. Chair, so discussion, so the first resolve just rescinds the annexation. And so we basically start back at ground zero. And then the second resolve directs us to move forward. So when was that agreed to? That, because that on the second, on the be it further resolved.
For Greg to get, or to the director to get back in the room with the respective departments and their counsel, is that what you're asking, JD?
Right, so it says should be annexed as anticipated. CDA will convey to RFPD. Like, has that been negotiated? Has that been decided and negotiated and finalized with the districts?
Can we ask that question one more time?
So it said the exclusive, be it further resolved, the exclusive farm use parcel in Morrow County should be annexed as anticipated by our IRFPD. And the CDA will convey to the IRFPD that it should not annex other lands into its district pursuant to ORS 478. So
So the 640 acres was to go to the
as
Oregon
as
side.
part of the original MOUs that is in contention of existing.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm sure that exists. That MOU, in your opinion, exists.
Okay, Jim, it's been moved and seconded. You heard the language from our legal counsel. Those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nay.
Nay.
motion carries.
I think you said.
Yeah, I
You said aye.
didn't vote. I was supposed to be Fran.
Extension then?
I feel like this is a quagmire that I don't fully understand. I feel like I feel like our hands are bound by a couple things, and I think we're over a ledge on either way.
I'm in no different position, JD. That's why I'm leaning into what our legal counsel has advised us, because
I agree with that, but I think even that going along with legal counsel is going to put us in jeopardy in other ways too. So
we can not have the motion, I guess, and just ignore our legal counsel.
I would not recommend that.
I'm not recommending that. So what was the count on the vote?
2-2,
2-2.
2-2-1 right now on abstention. I just feel like, yeah,
There's a hand. I don't know if we want.
You don't want that right now.
Okay, that's what I thought.
yeah.
So I don't know what you do when it's a tie.
Bells.
The motion fails. Thank you, Joe.
But JD is required to vote.
No, he's not. You can abstain. I mean, I think you can abstain.
Yeah, that's why
you can.
I feel like I abstain because I still feel like I don't know enough about what the implications are of the voting. Yeah.
Go ahead, JD.
Go
I don't
ahead,
mean to
yeah.
interrupt you.
No, that's fine. That's where I'm at. It's like the implications, like we're damned if we do, damned if we don't.
We are.
And so I'm trying to figure
I think that what I heard earlier summarized is that if we do not pass this, we're almost guaranteed a lawsuit.
Yeah.
If we do pass this, there's the possibility of a lawsuit.
This is a for sure, passing it, not passing it is a for sure. And if we do pass it, it depends on the conversations going forward. So
Do we know that it's for sure? And well, on the other side, do we know what the other side would do?
Very much so, what the law says.
pretty much what the legal counsel has advised us
Oregon statute defines it all.
is to.
That's what you're supposed to do. Is.
So I guess what I'm asking is there a lawsuit on both sides of the?
No, it's a negotiation between us and Oregon and Boardman Fire. You guys are at the tail end of this.
So board, I just remind you, in 2023, we entered into memorandums of understanding with both parties.
I have the minute meeting agenda here that has the attendance record. It shows that we weren't there.
We entered into memorandums of understanding. Our legal counsel is advising us to unwind the action we took in February. And if we listen to our counsel, it is then to direct me to work with both fire districts to reach resolution. But we need to unwind what we did.
Yeah. So my vote was to be inclined to listen to legal counsel. Jeff, yours was there. Joe, you opposed. John, you.
I want to hear that video first. Before
And JD is abstaining.
Just for what it's worth, I feel that if you don't follow advice of legal counsel, you just open yourself up to far greater liability.
That's where I am. I'm not a lawyer, right? That's why we have lawyers.
So board, at some point, we need to have a conversation about do no more damage. And this
We
is,
just keep doing damage.
and this is a real conversation that needs to occur. Our legal counsel has directed us to unwind what occurred. And
so
we are explicitly going against our legal counsel. I do not recommend that.
my question was the timeline on this, and second, I haven't read those MOUs, I haven't seen those MOUs, now we're having a question whether or not the MOUs exist. I'm inclined to trust staff that they do exist, but there's a statement that they haven't been exist. I've not read those, not seen those, and so I guess maybe, I don't want to modify the motion. But I'm going to have a meeting next, like a Zoom work session with legal counsel to walk through all of this. And have an opportunity to review those documents. I still feel like I feel like it's a tangled web that I don't. And so I'm inclined to support legal staff that they've untangled the web and went through it all. But there's also a divided board on it too.
Would you vote in the affirmative by saying that you have reservations about that? Because otherwise we're going against our legal counsel, and that, I don't know, catastrophic might be overstated, but it's close to that.
Do we hook up to the MOU? Can we see the MOU?
And JD, my board asked for the previous resolution, that's why I'm voting no.
Yeah.
But they haven't,
The
they
previous
didn't, they
resolution.
they haven't seen all the stuff from.
So they're
Elizabeth either.
basically asking the same question I am.
No,
Okay,
no, I don't think.
Would Liz Howard
But
be
this
available
has
to get on
happened,
the
this happened a
phone?
while back.
What's this?
back.
Okay.
Liz Howard be
So-
available to get on the phone?
But they haven't seen the Elizabeth Howard information.
She's out of town.
She's
No.
joining us for executive session.
We have an executive session and she's going to join us for that.
Oh, I was asking the question if she'd be able to get on the phone and explain her position on this. Maybe that would shed some light. Just a suggestion.
Greg, do you want to do that, Elizabeth, or should we move this to an executive session and come back?
I will follow whatever direction within will allow you folks choose to go.
Okay.
Yeah, then-
And not touchscreen, but he used 2 fingers.
Maybe we could hear more from Elizabeth if possible.
Yeah, so in front of me is the Irrigan Fire Protection District, MOU.
I think what we heard from Elizabeth is what she put together on a best case basis, and that's why the language was what it was with the motion. I'm uncomfortable bringing her into an open session where we have other parties that I don't think she's going to talk about it.
no, she won't.
It's just not going to happen.
Oh, was the MOU for insurance purposes or for fire protection?
What was that question again?
Was the MOU for fire protection or for insurance?
The MOU with Boardman,
Yes.
I'm sure. Helped both, it did both, I'm sure. Thanks.
That's why I'd like to see it.
Do you want to do an executive session, right?
Do you think that'll help?
I don't know whether.
I don't know how much more I can offer. I've read the attorney's letter.
John, JD, I implore you to vote affirmatively and follow legal counsel, and otherwise I don't know what kind of predicament we're gonna be in.
Without seeing that MOU and the audio, I really can't say yes.
JD, you're saying,
Also stuck.
okay,
I might, if I could help, I have copies of both of the MOUs in front of me if somebody wants to know, have any specific questions.
Who is this?
Aaron Palmquist.
Oh, no, it's.
Tim,
it's
Or is it-
Paul.
or Tim, oh, sound like Aaron.
Yes, I did.
Guys, we need to push
Yeah.
pause on this conversation. We're going down a path that is causing harm.
Yep.
And so we need to stop.
I am moving to item 4B, Bradbury investment requirements update, so I'll go to that one.
So During our previous meeting, it was requested that I bring clarity to what the 7-year reinvestment requirement is. We had a conversation with the BRAC, and let me be very clear what they shared with us. That each of the 5 members, including the CDA, any and all economic gain from the sale or lease of property must be reinvested back into the CDA properties for 7 years. With that said, should a private transaction occur separate from the 5 parties or the CDA, should that occur, and then should there be economic gain that follows off of that private transaction, then that is outside of the reinvestment commitment.
So say that last part again.
So let me during this, should one of the 5 partners or the CDA receive economic gain from the sale or lease of property, those proceeds must be reinvested back into the property. Should there be economic gain from should a private entity receive economic gain, then those proceeds do not have to be reinvested back into the property. So the best example of that is, should one of the partners or the CDA sell a parcel of property, and should the owner of that property then resell it, those proceeds then from the resale are not obligated to come back to the CDA. The reason for the 5 partners is the CDA believed that they are an extension, each of you are an extension of the CDA.
Could you forward that email out to the board?
There's no email, I had a telephone conversation.
So what it sounds, just to recap. If any one of us receive lands from the CDA, because we're partners in CDA, any proceeds from those lands, the proceeds have to go back to the CDA.
Yes, sir.
Even after it's all transferred to any one of the 5 of us or the CDA.
Yes, sir.
But then, so once it's transferred, then that third party private individual who's outside of the 5 parties or the CDA would then be able to
Yes, sir.
hold on to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, during the 7 years.
So if you have $6.5 million, buy a piece of property and then sell it. As an
Right.
individual.
Yeah.
Now, the one area that creates a gray area is we still have a parcel of property that is in the process of being cleaned up. So the question is, when does the 7-year period begin? The Army is telling us they believe that 7-year reinvestment period begins after
that.
After that. So effectively,
We haven't started the 7-year yet.
correct.
So that's what I was saying last week.
Correct.
Well,
Greg, did your report on this requirement come from BRAC?
Yes, sir.
We requested it in writing, but they
Yes,
said it could take 60 to 90 days to get.
So to be clear, if the port decided to sell 100 acres, pick a port, doesn't matter to me. Do those proceeds go back to the CDA then, or do they get to stay with the port?
They would stay with the individual partners, but they must be reinvested back into the CDA properties. So if Umatilla County received $100, you would have an obligation to reinvest that back into that portion of your real estate.
Is there a difference between net dollars and gross dollars in?
We didn't get into that conversation.
So in addition, for John's question, the next step would be, okay, say that you got that $100, and let's say you've reinvested 50 of it, and the 7-year period expires. What happens? Does that other 50 stay with
I didn't explore that question. I didn't explore that.
I mean, you
Well,
might not invest all of it, depending on what's needed for the property.
I would ask when the transaction occurred. So if the transaction occurred before the 7 years, and the transaction would obligate the entire transaction.
Yeah.
But if it's after, then. But it's after the 7 years, and there's no obligation.
And so each of you are obligated, as you receive your properties, to reinvest it back during that period of time. Unless you have a private transaction, or should you enter into a transaction and that private individual and chooses
Yeah.
to sell, then it's,
That makes sense, I guess, so, and just in clarity, so you said that any proceeds from this CDA, any of its members on lands that they may acquire, you said have to be reinvested into the CDA.
I'm sorry, into the properties. That would,
Okay, that's the question I have, it's like, is it required to invest, do we turn that proceeds back over to the CDA?
No.
Or do we turn it, or it has to be reinvested? Okay,
so each of the partners that, should you guys choose to divide the properties out, you would need to reinvest it back into the CDA properties. However, based upon the properties you have interest in, I would assume that's where you'd want the money to go. And I do not believe, and I didn't say this, but there would be nothing that would prohibit you from taking your dollars and putting it here. Although I don't think that's realistic.
Okay. Any
Sounds like
other
an odd.
questions on that, on the information that Greg gave us about the Brackley requirements?
So let me just repeat it one more time. So after a conversation with the BRAC office, any proceeds from the sale of property would need to be reinvested back into the CDA's properties.
Yes.
And so each of you are considered an extension of the CDA for the purpose of the 7-year time period.
So the actual process helps us all continue to work together so that we end up with something looking like Joliet, Illinois.
Yes, and just to be really candid, what the BRAC said is, the reason that 7-year won't start till the final piece is they don't want us saying, forget it, we don't want that piece and move on.
Right. All right. Item number 5, informational reports for possible work session. I want to change the order on some of this a little bit, Greg, if you don't mind. First of all, item C, administration, is that something that we can do in an open session? Can you help me out with what that is? Would you go ahead with that one, man?
Sure, so gang, as it stands right now with the Port of Morrow, no longer being our fiscal agent, our ability to financially stay afloat is limited. And so as of right now, we have just under $9,000 in the checking account.
That's not allocated elsewhere, so our council.
That's not allocated elsewhere. And so in order for us to meet our financial obligations, we need some form of revenue stream. And so whether that's member contributions, whether that's well, at this point, member contributions, we have no ability to financially proceed forward. And we do have outstanding financial obligations to the Port of Morrow, as I shared, either here or in budget committee. We have financial obligations to our legal counsel. We have financial obligations to our engineers of record. And as of right now, we do not have an income stream to meet those.
Okay, thanks. And we had some conversations, for those of you that have joined us just for this meeting, we had some conversations in our budget meeting earlier. And so the next item I want to bring back is item A. And that is, these are the items that Commissioner Taylor asked me to, and if you'd like to go ahead and have a conversation about those, Joe, why don't you just read out?
Oh, the first one on there was public records request. In our budget, we've got, what, $94,000
97, 90,000.
So, yeah, I didn't have it right there.
97 and some change.
97
Okay.
and some change.
So in the past, we've discussed that and said, let's not charge for those. But that's 90-some thousand dollars for public records request through the attorney is
A lot of money.
a lot of money. So I think we should establish a fee for doing that. And going forward, I don't have a number for it, fee number or anything like that, but I think we need to revisit that. And make that.
The language we've used before is nominal, and so defining nominal is, we know that's not 97,000.
Well, historically, what we've done is we've gone back to each of our entities' policies and procedures and bring them forward, and then we kind of pick and choose from those what we like, what we don't like. Is that something that we could still do, or?
Certainly, we're just looking for something that isn't $97,000.
So the state of Oregon has a very standard template for public records requests. It's straightforward, it's simple, and it allocates the costs appropriately.
Why don't we just do that then?
And the one issue you folks have to be prepared to navigate is our legal counsel charges pretty hefty by the hour. And quite often the folks requesting public records request don't want to pay that fee. And that's the legal counsel we've been using prior to me being here.
And that process is defined by the state of Oregon. So the state of Oregon says you can or must use, or can or must use legal counsel. Yeah. Okay.
Should we seek a different counsel that's not quite as expensive, or is that just kind of defeat the purpose then?
My recommend, let's stay with the council we have. They know the CDA, know the issues before us. They've been handling these. For us.
Okay. Second.
Well, I'm okay using the state standard template.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what it is. I was gonna suggest a motion that directing staff to bring back a proposed public records request policy for the next meeting for consideration and approval.
So do you want me to bring, I'm not being facetious, do you want me to bring back our existing policy or back?
Just a
new policy?
recommendation,
A
a
recommendation.
recommendation for a new policy.
Okay.
Does that work? Is that your motion?
Yeah.
I'll second
Could
that
we
motion.
also see the current policy?
Yeah, so what I'll do, I'll let you guys go.
Move second that you're gonna bring back some policies for us to consider. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring back our current policy. Then what I'm gonna do is just grab the standard state template
We can start.
and
That's a
bring
good
it
point.
back to you.
It's a good starting place. Yeah.
Move second. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Greg. Item number 2 on Joe's list was personnel.
Yeah, personnel positions. I gotta remind myself of what I was even writing.
What we were talking about is that we need to be able to have a team to move forward once we go ahead, if in fact we do, to direct the team to sell or lease property and so forth. A lot of activity could go on. And as we were looking at the budget previously, some of us had a question as to whether or not that was going to be adequate to be able to afford, what needs to be done.
Well, do we still have an open position, or is that refilled?
Open. We have two excellent candidates. I just held off as we're uncertain on their financial position.
Can't hire them if we're not paying our bills. We've got $8,000 in the bank, right? Correct.
That's right. So I think there was also some discussion of, are those on our budget, are those titles correct? I mean, are they appropriate for what you're looking for?
That's a good question.
You need an administrative assistant, at least, most you want to call it.
That's right. So let me share with you how we got to where we were. Okay, so initially you had the director and you had the administrative assistant. Then, for for a period of time up until conversations of the land distribution. We found ourselves in a situation where we were wrapping up the transition of the real estate transfer from the US Army. But in addition to that, we were also receiving inquiries from industry. And there was this excitement going on, and so we were also receiving inquiries for information, inquiries of historical information, inquiries of, will you come give us a tour? And so all of a sudden, this workload started growing. And so I needed a project coordinator, and that's when Emily was hired. Then when the motion was made to transfer the property and the litigation all started, all of that just stopped. I mean, literally within 30 days, that activity stopped. And so I'm anticipating when Umatilla County and the rest of you folks iron through this, that activity is gonna commence again.
Wrap up considerably.
You've got a lot of folks who are just waiting for this to clear out.
So the question in the
Yeah.
budget meeting was, do we have enough money to fund the team? And we agreed to have that conversation here. And my first blush at it in the previous meeting was, no, we don't have enough. So that's, I just want us to be prepared for what I think is going to be an onslaught of business and have sufficient resources to be able to take care of that.
Tim, I guess I may have a little bit of a difference of opinion if the property is transferred to other entities when they be fielding those requests and dealing with those people that are interested in that then. And then maybe the role of the CDA staff may be on a different level of what they're doing. And they won't be marketing and showing that property. It will be the individual property owners, however that ends up being.
It's rare that I push back, Jeff. But because we're still involved with the federal government, it's the CDA team that would be interfacing with them. Otherwise,
I don't disagree with that at all. I'm not saying that there isn't a role for the CDA staff. Just, will they be the ones responsible for the marketing and showing the property and building those questions? I guess, and I can sure be wrong here, and somebody can tell me differently, but I guess I would see their role as being the compliance officer of the, making sure that we're following the terms and agreements that we signed to receive this property.
let's say we're both right. And we just look at the number. And if we have a larger number, it's easier to have that on the front end than add to it later. I mean, generally speaking, when we go through a budget, it's plan for the best and for the worst at the same time, knowing that we don't have a clue what's going to happen. Like Don Russell was saying, you know, not make it as any more complicated than it needs to.
Well, I'm having a hard time right now of increasing that number when we're being told we don't have any money. So
that's kind of the angle I was coming from.
Okay. All right. Item number 3 is member contributions, which speaks to that. From Joe.
Yeah. So with this budget, what is that count? I didn't do the math right here in front of me, or actually I did. $264,552 is what our budget says our contributions will be. It's gonna change a little bit, but this is the invoice you've all got in front of your back. Okay, if we go on the assumption that's just what it's gonna have to be to make this budget work. Can we get that in quarterly payment? And not this one invoice right now.
Almost definitely.
Yeah. That was my thing on that. But that's what we're looking at as far as the budget is each member is supposed to pay $264,000 going forward to make this budget work starting in July.
And but if we were to do some land sales and leases, then we have a mechanism to reimburse people and they're not faced with that kind of a bill.
Yes.
Quarterly or otherwise.
We have an immediate need for cash.
Yeah.
And I'm looking to you five for addressing that immediate need. Then I'm also looking to you folks to allow your staff to aggressively move on the sale of a parcel of property, which the five of you agree what that parcel would be. With those proceeds, we could reimburse the Port of Morrow. We could reimburse the other members, should you choose. And we could take the remaining proceeds in cash flow. My guess is probably 3.5 years.
And that's what item number 4 in Joe's list was about, and that's property sales.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the resolution we've talked about before, but we can't go forward until we get the list balance taken care of.
So
And when I say cash flow out for the next 3 or 4 years, what I'm referring to is no longer seeking member contributions.
Right.
So back to contributions, just to put the reminder out there is there's still members here who haven't paid previous contributions.
So I think that's gonna be resolved, so I'd prefer we just didn't have that piece of conversation.
Okay. You're confident in that?
100% confident.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna take your word for it.
All
I
right,
won't bring it up again.
appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Do we have a time frame when that might be? Because not to be disrespectful in any way, but
No,
we heard that 30 days ago,
Yeah,
so.
well, I heard back from our attorneys yesterday, and we haven't had a chance to talk with our attorneys on the proposal. But Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're pretty close.
Well, Joe's got another item here, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll agree with that.
We're close, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt that conversation. That's good conversation. I wrote down whose property are we gonna sell? John brought up earlier that, there was a proposal that the Port of Morrow donate. 100 acres, but it could be any members.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that that's an option and that everybody's aware of it.
Well,
Maybe that might be an option.
actually, I was looking at the minutes from last month. And I'm gonna read it. The amended motion is as follows. I move that we authorize Kim Pusey as board chair to implement resolution 2025-01 and allow the sale of 100 acres on the Morrow County side of the property after the Umatilla County lifts its list vendors. So we've already identified that it's on the Morrow County side. We just don't know exactly where.
Right. But is going forward. Maybe that client. May look at something on the Morrow County side, but he sees something on the Umatilla County side and says, man, I just gotta be here in Umatilla County. Why? Is that not an option to do that? Instead of just looking at the Morrow County.
I don't think that motion precludes doing that, to have the conversation on either side of the property.
I would agree with that. Just want it to be open that it's an option.
Yeah.
To look at other pieces of property.
If after the list pendants is gone, after there's a resolution directing Greg to move forward. He comes and says to one of the other entities, this is what I found, this is what they want. That conversation, I don't think that.
Well, didn't we had a discussion that it was already identified that they wanted the piece on the Morrow County side. We had that discussion.
Who did?
That came up, because John, I think if I remember correctly, asked like, do you have somebody in mind right now? At some point, I didn't remember what the conversation was. And I believe Greg said, like, we have somebody and they want the piece of property.
Yeah, so let me share with you.
Yeah.
And part of this, we may have to discuss an executive session.
Right.
We have 2 companies,
Okay.
one who has made it very clear they're ready to offer on a piece of property. We have a second company that shared with me that they would like to be part of that conversation, and what is ever offered, they would like to have a chance to counter offer that price.
For the same property? Okay. Okay, yeah, we can discuss that, details of that later. I guess. Just a kind of question, because you said they're like within 90 days. Is there a 100-acre parcel that's been created and does it have legal access?
No,
Okay, that's a question I have about even, because you
I'm
said.
sorry. Yeah, I should have been clear on that.
Yeah.
And I stand corrected. In terms of having an agreement in place,
Yeah,
I think we could do that.
have an agreement in place, but then actually completing the stuff.
Right,
might
'cause
take
it's gonna take time to.
Get it surveyed and get it partitioned and get it
Right.
legal access and all that stuff. Okay,
I should have been clear on that.
okay.
Okay,
I'm satisfied on that one.
all
Thank you.
right, great.
So
Um,
staff's still unclear then. On that 100
Yeah.
acres, are we assuming wherever company chooses? I
No.
mean,
No, not on the Morrow County side, no.
okay, so you guys need to give me direction on
Well,
what you think is the appropriate 100 acres. Because I have to be more definitive with somebody.
well, I doesn't say that in our motion, does it? But that was the discussion. That you would work with Port Morrow
Correct.
to get that piece. And
Yes.
and we're just waiting for you to say, oh, they want to look here.
So we're still good with that conversation.
Yeah.
The motion does state 100 acres on the Morrow County side of the property. That's what it states.
So that sounds like it's between Port Marlin. Yeah, Greg and whoever's looking for the property.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand that.
And, oh,
Well, a prospective buyer, I mean, if you tell them, this is the property that's available on the Port of Morrow side, are you interested? I mean, they're gonna, I don't know, I don't
And I'm
understand.
gonna find out, I asked that question. Are they looking at the Morrow County side or the Umatilla County side? I was specifically told it was the Morrow County side.
There are inquiries about both sides. That's correct.
there's still budget matters that
Yeah.
I want to drag on. Sorry. Are you, John, were you looking for something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so there's, as far as budget goes, I think it fits on our agenda. There's $9,000 in the account. For tomorrow is still paying payroll. And Lisa, if you give me this letter. I'm good to read this letter.
Yes.
Okay, so this is signed by Lisa. The Port of Morrow resigns as fiscal agent of the Columbia Development Authority. CDA staff has been paid through February 18th, 2025. The Port is willing to continue payroll through the next pay end date, which is May 2nd, 2025, but requests that other arrangements be made to take over payroll following that date. Now with that added on, and Eileen's better correct me because I'll get it wrong. Employment, as any employer knows, takes a while to get out of. Is that the right summary of it, Eileen? There's still things that go on after you're done with an employer. Meaning you're
I don't see that being an issue.
okay. We had talked about another day. I thought it was a different day in June, actually, but we would be all required to be done.
Okay, this was the direction that I was given from the board, was to offer that date. And our attorney said, or unless some other arrangement was made. So if you need us to keep doing it, I guess we would be conducive to that, but I don't really see an issue. As long as their payroll is picked up by someone. Or by the CDA itself. It's come to the time that you need to make up your minds what you're doing.
And Greg, you mentioned before that you've got some feelers out there for payroll companies.
I do. We do have an issue, probably we need to discuss an executive session as it relates to that, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Quick question, and I was still pondering a question. I don't mean to jump, I don't like jumping back, but question on the member contributions, if I may, for quick. Or, so the 270 or 280 or whatever it is, that's for 2026, but now we've talked about a $500,000 deficit to to Port of Morrow for the current budget. And so what's I gotta ask my board for money. I think we do have an obligation of the IGA, but I guess how is that being settled on the existing deficits we have?
Yeah, so the member match for the grant, for the last couple grant cycles, we haven't sent out the member match invoices. I can get those out as soon as
Okay.
possible to you, so you can get over to your board.
Okay.
And that would be in addition to that invoice I sent.
Okay,
Okay, as far as, there might be a little bit of confusion, so. The papers that you were given, the grant stuff is all on the top. Page 5 tells you who still owes what for their 20% of the match.
for 24.
From. We
Yeah.
have, yeah, it lists what quarters they relate to. July.
It could be July 1 and
Okay, so
24.
those are the items still
February.
outstanding
Okay.
on the grant. The other 500,000 are expenses we've paid outside of the grant. And
Okay.
those sheets are that. And then I didn't know if you cared, the copy of the final from the press on the grant of the last few pages
Okay.
of that package. But they are definitely right. If you're going to make other payroll arrangements, there needs to be some cash inflow before that.
Correct, yeah.
Oh, good.
I think I'm good.
All right. If we go to item B, rules of procedure for meeting agenda and operations, Greg, information on that. So fine.
Yeah, so Jeff, you would forward this over to us.
Oh, 5D.
Yeah.
Yes, so this was a request from Commissioner Gus Peterson that, he tuned into one of our last meetings, and his request to me, or his first question was, how does somebody get something on the agenda of the CDA? He says, well, I would assume that a board member would bring it to either the executive director and or the board chair, and that's how you get it on. So his request to me was to bring forward as an example what Morrow County had recently adopted as rules of procedure for operating the board meetings, and in that addresses, how do you get things on the agenda, the order things are done, and different things like that. And again, this was only included as an example of what we are doing, and just something for consideration. And again, this was, his request was to bring this forward and to see if the CDA board would have any interest in adopting some kind of board rules of operation or whatever you'd like to call it. So that's what this was about.
Let me tell you, as the chair, under current circumstances, I'd prefer to go to Greg and or Emily to get it on the agenda, because based on the ongoing litigation, Greg and I really can't talk.
Okay.
So it's best that it go through the director or Emily.
So,
I did have a chance to go through this, and I thought there were a lot of good policies and procedures in here that we should be following.
And again, this is just a recommendation of a template to follow. Obviously be open to whatever the board would like to do.
Mr. Chair, we've had this conversation, and I've only been on for 18 months now. We've had this conversation before, because I had sent it over to Debbie at the time. We have an executive management policy and a board procedures code. I sent both those over a year ago. It's the exact same conversation, because we don't have any FMP, fiscal management policies, executive management policy. It defines the relationship between the executive director and the board, and within the board procedures. We just don't have any. We have the IGA, we're kind of operating the IGA. But the IGA is much more ethereal than it is procedural. So I agree. I absolutely agree, but I just remind, we had this conversation over a year ago and then going like.
So can I take what JD and Jeff have provided, try to blend this in and bring this back next month?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, guys.
That'd be great.
Okay. Okay.
Let me make a move here.
All right.
Do a motion for that? Yeah.
Did you make that motion, David?
I move to direct the CDA staff to bring us recommendations on board procedures. Policy.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
At the next meeting, at the next meeting.
At the next meeting. Okay.
Sorry.
Understood. We heard your conversation.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. I want to, I'm going to talk about the proposed motions,
Right.
for you in executive session.
Okay.
And so if you don't mind, I'm going to go to the good of the order. Then we can have an executive session at the end rather than have to come back and do more.
Okay.
So anything for the good of the order before we go into an executive session?
So I have one.
About the proposed motions that JD has put forward and some other items.
So I do have one, I guess, that falls under good of the order. So, before the meeting started, Emily handed me a pile of checks and requested that I sign. And just rough adding up in my head, it's like $5,800. So when you talked about the $9,000 in the account, is that already subtracting these out?
It is.
Okay,
yeah.
so then I was, just wanted to make sure that we had money before I signed my name to something that's gonna bounce.
No, they're not going after you.
Still.
You just.
Yeah, those are all.
Give me a confidential information.
Jeff will sign.
Okay.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
One, just real quick,
Please, Sean.
I know when it's all said and done, who's doing roads, maintaining of the roads? Because I don't think our road department has had any input onto what the standards are or maintenance levels or anything like that.
I thought they had.
I
I missed that meeting where.
I don't think our guys have been involved. That's,
This sounds like road standards.
yeah. Am I saying that right, Dan?
I think so.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
No, I mean, that's a correct statement. We had, mainly in Morrow County, and Port of Umatilla. So Umatilla County, during our conversation last few months was not included.
So Umatilla County Road Department's been involved? Or I guess maybe.
Umatilla, Port of Umatilla, and Port of Morrow were involved. Umatilla County
Okay,
Road was not involved last few months.
okay, so.
And our involvement, though, John and Fred, was specifically related to the dates that from the grant, from HB 2017, and making sure that we were up to speed with ODOT. So ODOT was in the room.
Correct.
And I was there because of the chair, not because of the board. And Fred was there. We had folks over from LeGrand, so it was an ODOT meeting to make sure that we kept up with the dates on the legislation. That's as far as the conversation went. Are we doing this in a timely fashion?
Our intent, just waiting for your agreement. We are ready to go for RFP. We will have your road department, Port of Morrow, the tribe, and involved in the Morrow County also.
Okay.
Involved in selection, which process, procedures, all of that would be on the table with all of it.
I'm not a road guy, I just drive on them, so I make sure that the right people.
That was our intention.
Okay.
And we, once we get that going, we just wait and see.
It was just not losing the appropriation because of timing.
I do want to. For the good of your, you and share, my reluctance at this point to proceed forward on those road projects until we have our fiscal situation. And and we've got folks ready to pull the trigger. And I've got a commitment to our partners to not proceed until I know that that is secured and not place them in a jeopardy situation.
Are we in jeopardy of the state clawing back those funds?
Yes.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
What kind of time frame is that?
But right now, we estimated, we provided all the estimates. We delay it a lot further, we will be in jeopardy. It takes time to put a RFP, select people, get it going and completing construction, and we will fall beyond that. So if we can get the go ahead this week, next week, we are fine. Any longer than that,
Well, you're talking weeks and we're not gonna meet again for another month.
Oh, see Commissioner Dorothy back there.
I didn't see that.
That's fine. Real quick question, and Greg probably knows the answer to this. Is this a, paid upon receipts, or is this, I guess there's two different, grants.
It's a reimbursement base
So,
program.
so that,
We get our invoices.
right, and then it's reimbursed on receipt.
The challenge, so in ODOT's been paying that, they've been working with us to make sure that those invoices get paid in an expedited manner. The challenge I have is I can't put our partners in a situation should ODOT take longer than we'd want.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all.
And so I don't have the financial backing to cover it.
But that wasn't addressed in the budget, right? I mean.
Correct. Correct. And so, we've got two partners who each have resources to bring to this project. One of them, we need to make sure, in no way gets, is responsible for the financial obligation of this.
No, I
You get what I'm
totally
saying.
agree. I just.
And I'm kind of tripping around in the language, but.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anything else we can do to the order?
I guess what I'm sharing with you is we've got this project. Time is of the essence. I don't have the resources to proceed. And could these dollars get clawed back? No stuff.
Okay.
So just know what's at stake. And I'm not going to commit our partners until I know I've got the financial resources for us to proceed.
Great. Yeah. Anything else? All right. We will go ahead and go into executive session. And Emily, will you read that for us?
Yeah. The CDA may hold an executive session meeting for personal reasons stated below under ORS 192.6602. Representatives of the news media and designated staff and other persons shall be allowed to attend the event. All other members of the audience will be asked to leave the room or the CDA board may adjourn to never return. The public virtual Zoom meeting link will be closed during executive session as permissible. Executive session meetings are not subject to HB 2560. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in this executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room in person and open the public meeting, virtual Zoom meeting link again. This is for purpose of the consultation with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. ORS 192.6602.
Thank you, Emily.
Let me just give me a second to.
I think. I don't know. I think I might be waiting.
Yeah.
The only item left is that 5B
Which one?
Five.
Oh, right. And you're gonna.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, do we have everybody back?
Nobody left out there.
And are you good online?
Yeah, everybody's in.
Everybody's back?
Jump to the link.
Okay, we are gonna resume our meeting. Chair Pusey did have to go for a personal engagement. So I am taking over at this point. And we still have item 5B, the proposed motions from Mr. Tubby.
Okay, so after some discussion on these, I want to state the purpose of these was originally as a direct response to the loss of the old DCC grant. One of the challenges that I felt is that we as the Climate Development Authority didn't take appropriate actions because Port Morrow was the fiduciary. They took their portion of responsibility. OLDCC and did the response. OLDCC came back and said there were some challenges about your responses to the OLDCC comments. And then even after the loss of the grant, I was still concerned that we as a CDA, that was the beneficiary of the OLDCC grant, had not taken appropriate actions in order to be able to try to maintain the OLDCC grant or try to win the OLDCC grant in the future. So these motions that I crafted were directly linked to the compliance issues, the Michael Wilson from the Deputy Director of Compliance from OLDCC. They were designed directly to respond to those. Under further discussion, though, I think we are on a different path in trying to have a more universal kind of completion or resolution of some of these things, including whether it's job descriptions or executive management policies or any kind of operational agreements here in the organization. So I am more than happy to table these for now with the expectation that they will be included and some for future universal fix to the organization.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No, I think they're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, JD. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Oh, nope. What?
We need to set.
Oh,
That's the Zoom meeting.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
I'll take back.
Yeah.
We're back in session. I think the adjourned back.
We didn't vote on it yet, so.
Yeah. So we do want to set a special meeting. And that's to discuss item 4A, fire service update, and we'll have a special Zoom meeting a week from today at 1 o'clock.
April 29th.
April 29th, correct, at 1 p.m. And that'll be an online virtual meeting. Okay. Okay, now I'll take a motion. Let's do it that way.
Okay. I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, we're adjourned.